Do you believe in ancient stories of weird animals or paranormal creatures? Most of us don't, but these creatures will shake you to the core just by their terrifying looks and mind-boggling ancient stories. Whether you're a skeptic or a true believer, these mythical creatures will scare you. Chupacabra. This was a giant beast that preyed on livestock in the darkness. The chupacabra means goat sucker in Spanish. Farmers would find their goats and chickens completely sucked inside out and strange puncture wounds on their necks. This was the brute force of chupacabra. Sightings started in Puerto Rico in the 1990s, and the legend quickly spread throughout Latin America and even into the United States. Some people swear they've seen this thing running through the woods. This creature has become a pop culture icon, featuring in movies and video games. Blemmies. There are ancient stories about a tribe of headless men whose faces were right on their chests. Historians believe that the Blemmies were a fierce nomadic people living somewhere in remote Africa. Ancient Greek writers like Herodotus described them as fearless warriors. Medieval European maps often included drawings of these strange figures, fueling the belief that they roamed some distant, unexplored corner of the world. While there probably weren't exactly headless people, historians think there may be a grain of truth behind the legend. It's possible the stories came from encounters with a real tribe who wore huge masks or headdresses that kept their faces hidden. This can also be based on sightings of people with severe birth defects. Nuckelavee. This story is one of the most bizarre and terrifying in Scottish folklore. It describes the Nuckelavee as a skinless, horse-like creature with a human attached permanently to the horse's back. The human had freakishly long arms, and it had one giant blood-red eye filled with pure malice. But wait, it gets worse. This monster's breath was so toxic it could wilt crops and cause plagues. It's said that this monster came from the ocean. Orcadian islanders blamed the Nuckelavee for everything bad, like droughts, sickness, and disastrous storms. If you were unlucky enough to spot this demon, the only way to escape was diving into the fresh water. It supposedly couldn't cross running streams, giving you a narrow chance to escape. Hellhound. Throughout folk stories, hellhounds are known as omens of darkness. Some stories say they guard the gates of the underworld to ensure souls don't escape. Others show them as relentless hunters who catch evil souls back to their terrifying prisons. You'll find mentions of these beasts in mythologies across the world. The ancient Greeks had Cerberus, a three-headed hound who guarded the entrance to Hades. In Norse mythology, a beast named Garmr guards the gates to hell. But the ancient tales could be correct, because people still spot these spectral hounds hiding in graveyards and remote crossroads. Bunyip. This creature has been part of Aboriginal stories for ages, yet nobody can agree on what it looks like. Every story has its own version of Bunyip. Some say Bunyip is a big hairy beast with flippers and a dog-like face. Others think it has big teeth, horns, and maybe even a horse's tail. But every story has one thing in common. Bunyip lives deep in the wild terrains of Australia, and its roar is really scary. For Aboriginal Australians, the Bunyip represents the mystery and power of nature. But for settlers exploring the Australian wilderness, it was a real fear. They were frightened to even go near the dark waters. Wendigo. This scary creature has been seen in many movies. It is one of the creepiest animal ghosts in Hollywood. According to the stories, it mostly appears in the winter and lives in the north. This monster used to scare the Algonquin, Ojibwe, Cree, Saulteaux, Innis, and even Europeans. They'd see it around the Great Lakes, in the forests along the east coast of Canada, and out on the Great Plains in the United States. But the details change depending on from whom you hear the story. Some people say it has super tight gray skin that makes its bones stick out. Others think it's a huge cannibal that takes over people's bodies. Chimera. In Greek mythology, there are some pretty scary creatures that can keep you up at night. But one of the scariest is the chimera. It's a beast that breathes fire and has the body of a lion but with a goat's head sticking out of its back and a snake's head for a tail. It's like a mix of all the scariest animals you can think of. The chimera comes from some pretty dark stuff. Its parents are a giant serpent named Typhon and a lady who's half woman, half snake, called Echidna. It also has some evil brothers and sisters, like the Hydra and Cerberus. Mongolian deathworm. The Gobi Desert is a tough place, and the stories of this worm make it scarier. It is a huge worm in red color and about 5 feet long. Locals talk about how it can poison you with just a touch and spit out acid that can kill you. Some even say it can shock you with electricity if you get too close. The Mongolian people claim they've seen it sometimes, but there's no proof. So which of these horrifying creatures left you the most terrified? Let us know in the comments and tell us about any creepy local legends from your hometown.